At my baby shower, my mother-in-law stood up in front of 52 guests, grabbed the microphone from the DJ, and demanded I take a DNA test right there to prove my baby was actually her son's. She called me a gold digger, a liar, and accused me of trapping her precious boy with another man's child while relatives gasped and my husband sat frozen. I smiled, reached into my purse, pulled out an envelope I'd been carrying for 3 weeks, and handed her a DNA test that proved her son, my husband, wasn't actually her husband's child, and the room went so silent you could hear her champagne glass shatter on the floor. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're a subscriber, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. We were at a garden venue, early afternoon, pink and gold decorations everywhere, about 52 guests including family and close friends. The baby shower was going perfectly. Games had been played, gifts opened, cake served. I was 30 weeks pregnant, glowing in a cream maternity dress, surrounded by people celebrating our first child. My mother-in-law, Sonia Carter, had been unusually quiet all afternoon, sitting in the corner with her sister and a few of her country club friends, whispering and shooting glances my way. Mid-conversation with my best friend Ruby, the music suddenly cut out. I turned to see Sonia standing by the DJ booth, microphone in hand, her face flushed with what I initially thought was champagne but quickly recognized as rage. "Before we wrap up this lovely party," she announced, her voice syrupy sweet but with an edge sharp enough to cut glass, "I think we need to address the elephant in the room." The garden went quiet. All 52 guests turned to look at her, confusion rippling through the crowd. "Gianna," she said my name like it was poison, "has been very evasive about certain timeline issues. My son Dylan married her very quickly, and now here we are, 30 weeks into a pregnancy that, quite frankly, the math doesn't add up on." My heart started pounding. My hand instinctively went to my belly. "So, I've brought something with me today." Sonia reached into her designer handbag and pulled out a DNA test kit, holding it up like evidence at a trial. "I think before we celebrate this baby, we need to make sure it's actually a Carter." Gasps erupted around the garden. My mother Belle stood up, her face bright red. Ruby grabbed my arm. Dylan, my husband, sat at a table with his groomsmen, his face drained of all color, looking like he wanted the earth to swallow him whole. "I know what you are," Sonia continued, emboldened by the attention, by the shocked faces, by my apparent speechlessness. "You trapped my son. You probably got pregnant by some other man and saw Dylan as your meal ticket. Well, I'm not going to let you destroy this family with your lies." She walked toward me, heels clicking on the stone pathway, DNA kit extended like a weapon. "Take the test, Gianna. Right now. Prove this baby is Dylan's, or admit you've been lying this whole time." I stood there for what felt like an eternity but was probably only 10 seconds. Every eye in that garden was on me. Some guests looked sympathetic. Others looked curious, hungry for drama. A few looked uncomfortable, like they wanted to leave but couldn't move. My mother started walking toward me, ready to intervene, but I held up my hand, stopping her. "Because here's the thing Sonia didn't know, 3 weeks ago, I'd discovered something. Something that had been eating at me ever since. Something I'd been carrying around, unsure what to do with it, terrified of the consequences. And now, she'd just given me the perfect opportunity to use it." I reached into my purse, the cream leather one that matched my dress, and pulled out a manila envelope. It had been sitting there for 21 days, burning a hole through the lining, waiting. "You want to talk about DNA tests, Sonia?" My voice was calm, steadier than I felt. "Let's talk about DNA tests." I walked toward her slowly, my pregnant belly leading the way, and handed her the envelope. "That's a DNA test, too. But not for my baby." Sonia took it, confusion flickering across her face. "What is this?" "Open it," I said. "In front of everyone. Since you clearly believe family business should be handled publicly." Her hands shook slightly as she opened the envelope. I watched her face as she read the first page, the official laboratory letterhead, the technical language, the percentages and genetic markers. Then I watched her face drain of all color as she got to the conclusion. That's a DNA test proving that Dylan, your son, the man I'm married to, the father of this baby you're so concerned about, isn't actually your husband Charles's biological child. The collective gasp from 52 guests was audible. Someone's champagne glass slipped from their fingers and shattered on the stone patio. Sonia's hands went limp, and the envelope fell. Charles, who'd been standing nearby, caught it before it hit the ground, his face draining of color as he began to read. So before you stand here and accuse me of trapping your son, I continued, my voice carrying across the silent garden, maybe you should explain to everyone here, including Charles, who Dylan's real father is. That's when Sonia started screaming. My name is Gianna Souza. I'm 32 years old, and before I tell you how everything exploded at that baby shower, you need to understand who I was before I became Dylan Carter's wife, before I became Sonia's target, before my life became this complicated. I'm a medical research scientist specializing in genetic testing and hereditary disease research at Meridian Biotech. I have a PhD in molecular biology from Stanford and hold 2 patents on genetic screening processes that help identify hereditary cancer markers in early pregnancy. That last part is important. Remember it. I bought my house when I was 29, a craftsman-style home in the Berkeley Hills with a view of the bay and a garden I actually have time to tend. I paid cash, $680,000 from my signing bonus, savings, and a research grant I'd won. That house represents every all-nighter I pulled in grad school, every fellowship application, every relationship that didn't work out because I chose career over convenience. It's mine. Completely mine. I grew up in San Jose. My father Marco died when I was 11, sudden heart attack, no warning. One morning he was making me pancakes, by evening he was gone. My mother Belle raised me and my younger brother alone, working 2 jobs to keep us in our house and good schools. I watched her struggle, watched her depend on family members who made her feel guilty for needing help, watched her compromise and shrink herself. I promised myself I would never live like that. Belle noticed. One night when I was 16, studying for the SATs while she did accounting work, she looked up and said, "You're going to build something better than this, aren't you?" I thought she was angry. Instead, she smiled. "Good," she said. "Build something that's yours. Don't ever let anyone make you feel guilty for being successful." That became my guiding principle through undergrad, through my PhD, through the years of postdoc research where I worked 70-hour weeks because I knew it would lead somewhere. Through relationships with men who said they supported my ambitions but really wanted me to be less threatening. I didn't date much. I didn't have time, and I didn't have patience for men who needed me to be smaller so they could feel bigger. Until I met Dylan Carter at a fundraising gala 3.5 years ago. I hated these events, the performative charity, the small talk. But Dylan seemed different. He was a high school science teacher who'd chosen education over joining his father's real estate business. He talked passionately about making science accessible to kids who didn't think they were smart enough. We talked for 3 hours, then moved to a coffee shop, then walked along the waterfront until 2 a.m. He told me about disappointing his parents by becoming a teacher, about being the son who was never quite good enough, about his younger sister Amy being the golden child. I told him about my research, about Belle's lessons on independence, about the house that represented everything I'd built alone. When Dylan proposed after 14 months of dating, he did it in my back garden at sunset. He promised that marrying him wouldn't mean giving up my career, my independence, or my identity. I believed him. I said yes. The warning signs with Sonia started during our engagement. Comments about modern women prioritizing careers over family. Suggestions that I should step back professionally once we started having children. Dylan would deflect, apologize to me later in private, assure me his mother just needed time to adjust. But there was one dinner at the Carter family estate in Hillsborough that should have told me everything. Sonia spent the evening describing our family home to her bridge club friend, accepting compliments on our taste, claiming ownership of a house Charles had inherited from his father. Charles said nothing. Just accepted it with the resignation of someone who'd learned that correcting Sonia wasn't worth the warfare. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Later, I asked Dylan if it bothered him that his mother claimed credit for things she hadn't built. "That's just how she is," he said uncomfortably. "Can we not do this tonight?" But it meant something. It meant Sonia viewed family assets as communal property she could redistribute. It meant she didn't distinguish between what someone earned and what they married into. I should have pushed harder. Should have recognized this pattern for what it was, a preview of every future conflict. But I was patient. I told myself families were complicated, that Dylan just needed time to learn boundaries. I was patient through our first year of marriage when Sonia would drop by unannounced, let herself in with the spare key Dylan had given her, rearrange my kitchen, and leave notes about how things should be organized. Dylan would apologize. Promise to talk to her. Ask me to be patient just a little longer. 6 months ago, I found out I was pregnant. Dylan was ecstatic. He cried, held me, immediately started planning the nursery. Then he made a mistake I should have seen coming. He called his mother before we'd agreed on when to tell people. Within an hour, Sonia was calling me, crying happy tears, making plans, where the nursery should be, what colors, which pediatrician. She sent me a list of baby name suggestions the next day. All Carter family names. Then came the timeline questions. "When exactly did you conceive?" she asked at a family dinner. "I'm just trying to calculate the due date." I gave her the estimated window my doctor had provided. Early February. Sonia's eyes narrowed. She pulled out her phone calendar, started scrolling. February? But Dylan was at that teaching conference in Chicago for a week in early February. "The conception window is approximate," I said calmly, though my heart rate was picking up. Just that. But the doubt was planted. Over the next months, Sonia became obsessed with timeline details. The questions were never really about dates, they were about control. Then, 3 weeks before the baby shower, something happened that changed everything. I was at work, running genetic tests on prenatal samples, when my lab partner Hudson knocked on my office door. He looked uncomfortable. "Gianna, I need to talk to you about something. It's sensitive." Hudson and I had worked together for 4 years. We'd collaborated on major research papers, trusted each other with experimental data worth millions. If Hudson looked this uncomfortable, it was serious. "I processed a DNA test this morning," he said slowly. "One that came through our secondary analysis queue, the Ancestry and Health Screening Package. We ran these tests all the time. People submitted samples for medical screening and paid extra for comprehensive genetic ancestry analysis. The test came back with some unexpected results. And when I looked at the name on the file, I recognized it." Hudson pulled up the file on his tablet, turned it toward me. "Dylan Carter. Your husband." I stared at the screen. Dylan's name, date of birth, sample ID. He'd done this without telling me. At the lab where I worked. "Why are you showing me this?" I asked, though I already knew. "Because the results show something you need to know." Hudson pulled up another screen. "Dylan's paternal genetic markers don't match what he would have listed on his intake form. He listed Charles Carter as his father, right? That's what he believes. The markers don't support that." Hudson showed me the data. "Look at the analysis. Dylan's paternal DNA doesn't match Charles's. We actually have Charles's data on file too. He did cardiac health screening here 3 years ago." I remembered. Charles had come in looking embarrassed, said Sonia was worried about family heart disease after his brother died. "The genetic evidence is clear," Hudson continued. "Dylan and Charles don't share paternal lineage. It's genetically impossible for Charles to be Dylan's biological father." The room seemed to tilt. "Are you sure? Could there be contamination, processing error?" I ran it twice. Hudson's voice was apologetic but certain. Everything was properly handled and analyzed. Dylan Carter is not Charles Carter's biological son. I sat there, staring at the data, the genetic markers, the statistical certainty. All the scientific evidence I'd spent my career learning to trust, now telling me something that would destroy the family I'd married into. Does anyone else know? Just me. And now you. Hudson paused. What are you going to do? That was the question I spent the next 3 weeks agonizing over. I couldn't tell Dylan without proof he could understand. I couldn't tell Charles without destroying his marriage. I couldn't tell Sonia without, actually, what would happen if I told Sonia? So I did what any scientist would do. I gathered more evidence. I requested a formal comparative analysis, properly documented, with official lab letterhead and certification. I had Hudson process it through our quality assurance protocols. Every step documented, every result verified. The final report sat in a manila envelope in my purse for 21 days. I carried it everywhere, unsure what to do with it. Meanwhile, Sonia's campaign against me escalated. She started making comments at family dinners about women who trick men into marriage with pregnancies. About paternity fraud cases she'd read about online. About how families needed to be vigilant about protecting bloodlines. Dylan heard these comments but treated them like background noise, his mother's general anxiety rather than directed attacks. Amy started avoiding me. Later, I found out Sonia had been talking to her privately, sharing concerns about the pregnancy timeline, about my character, about whether I was the right fit for the Carter family. She's been planting seeds, Dylan's cousin Ella told me over coffee. Sonia's been working the family for weeks, building a case against you. The baby shower is going to be her moment. I don't know exactly what she's planning, but it's going to be public. How public? She's invited 50+ people. Way more than normal. She's been telling everyone there will be important announcements. Gianna, I think she's going to confront you there. That's when I made my decision. If Sonia wanted a public confrontation, I'd give her one. But not the one she was expecting. I kept that manila envelope in my purse. Carried it to the baby shower like ammunition I hoped I wouldn't need but was prepared to use. The baby shower was Sonia's idea from the start, which should have been my first warning. My best friend Ruby had volunteered to throw something small, maybe 15 people, brunch at a nice restaurant. But Sonia insisted. The Carter family takes care of our own. This baby is a Carter, and we celebrate Carters properly. I'm hosting, and that's final. Dylan looked at me helplessly. That expression I'd learned meant he wanted me to accept whatever his mother demanded because fighting would cause more stress. Against my better judgment, I agreed. Fine. But keep it small, Sonia. She smiled and promised it would be tasteful and intimate. The invitations went out 2 weeks before the shower. Ruby called me, confused. Gianna, did you know your mother-in-law invited 50 people and rented the entire garden venue at the Rosewood estate? And look at the wording, important family announcements. My stomach sank. What announcements? I don't know, but it sounds like she's planning something. I confronted Dylan that night. He was grading papers in our home office. Did you know your mother invited 50 people and rented an estate venue? Dylan's face went pale. What? She told me maybe 20 people, tops. Well, she lied. And what are these important family announcements? I have no idea. Dylan set down his red pen, ran his hands through his hair. I'll call her. But when he called, Sonia had excuses ready. The family is excited, darling. Everyone wanted to come. And your father and I have special gifts planned. Don't worry about it. Dylan hung up and looked at me helplessly. She says everything's already planned, deposits are paid. So we just accept that your mother has taken over my baby shower? What do you want me to do, Gianna? Fight with her 3 weeks before the event? Can we please just get through this day without another crisis? That was the pattern. Always, get through this day, always, avoid the drama. They never were. The week before the shower, Sonia called me directly. Gianna, dear, have you finalized the baby's name? We're still discussing options. We'd actually chosen Emma Rose Souza Carter, but I wanted to keep it private. You're hyphenating? Sonia's voice sharpened. The baby won't just be a Carter? My name is important too. There was a long pause. We'll discuss that at the shower. And godparents, the Carter family tradition is that the paternal grandparents serve as primary spiritual guardians. That's not something we've discussed. Well, it's tradition. We can announce it at the shower. I felt the trap closing. The shower wasn't going to be a celebration, it was going to be Sonia asserting control in front of an audience too large to push back against. 2 days before the shower, Ella called me. Gianna, I overheard Sonia at my mom's house. She has a DNA test kit. She's planning to confront you at the shower about the baby's paternity. She's convinced you trapped Dylan. She thinks if she does it publicly, you won't be able to refuse without looking guilty. After I hung up, I sat in my car, 30 weeks pregnant, exhausted, carrying a secret that could destroy my husband's entire understanding of his family. I reached into my purse and touched the manila envelope. Ella had just answered my question about what to do with it. If Sonia wanted to make paternity a public issue, I'd show her exactly what that game looked like when you didn't control all the pieces. I called Hudson. That comparative analysis we ran, can you prepare an official presentation copy? Full documentation, lab certification? Why? Because I'm going to need it in 2 days, and it needs to be irrefutable. Hudson had the documents ready the next morning. Official Meridian Biotech letterhead, certified by 2 senior scientists, proving Dylan Carter was not the biological son of Charles Carter. I put it in the manila envelope and carried it to the baby shower. Just in case. The night before the shower, I barely slept. Emma was active, kicking and rolling, probably responding to my stress. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the manila envelope in my purse on the nightstand, wondering if I'd actually have the courage to use it. The morning of the shower, I stood in front of my bedroom mirror and the cream maternity dress Belle had helped me pick out. Dylan was already dressed, looking nervous in ways that went beyond normal pre-event jitters. Are you feeling okay? He asked. You seem tense. I wanted to scream at him. Instead, I said, I'm fine. Just tired. The cream leather purse sat on the dresser. Inside, my phone, wallet, lip gloss, and 1 manila envelope containing documents that could destroy everything. The Rosewood Estate Gardens were 20 minutes away. Dylan drove while I stared out the window, one hand on my belly. Through the iron gates, I could see pink and gold decorations everywhere, balloons, floral arrangements, a huge banner reading, Welcome Baby Carter, in glittering letters. Not, Welcome Baby Souza Carter. Just Carter. We arrived early. Only about 15 people were there, mostly Sonia's bridge club friends setting up. The DJ was still arranging equipment. Catering staff moved between tables. And there was Sonia, in the center like a conductor before a symphony. Pale pink suit, hair perfect, makeup flawless. When she saw us, her smile didn't reach her eyes. Dylan. Gianna. You're here. She hugged Dylan warmly, then gave me a brief, perfunctory embrace. You look lovely, dear. Though I wish you'd worn something more traditional. Cream washes you out. 5 seconds. We'd been there 5 seconds. The dress is fine, Mom, Dylan said mildly, but he didn't push back. Never did. Sonia led us through the garden, pointing out details, the 3-tier cake, the gift table, the photo backdrop with Baby Carter written in script, the game stations. And here, she gestured to a small platform near the DJ booth, is where we'll do the gift opening and special presentations. What special presentations? I asked. Oh, you'll see. That sharp smile again. More guests arrived. I recognized some, Dylan's sister Amy and her husband Mike, cousins, Ruby looking worried. But so many people I didn't know. Sonia's extended network, people with no connection to me except that Sonia had invited them to witness whatever she'd planned. Ruby found me by the refreshment table. This is insane. There are 40 people here already. This isn't a baby shower, it's a production. I know. Are you okay? Stay close, okay? I might need you. Ruby studied my face and understood something was wrong. What's going on? Before I could answer, I spotted Ella near the entrance, catching my eye and giving me a subtle nod. The warning. It was happening. I excused myself to the restroom. When I returned, the party was in full swing. Music playing, people chatting, champagne circulating. Someone had put a ridiculous, mommy-to-be, sash on me, Sonia's doing, another way to center attention. Dylan was talking to Charles near the gift table. Charles looked uncomfortable in his suit, like always at Sonia's events. He was a quiet man, gentle, the kind of father-in-law who'd always been kind to me in his distant way. Looking at him now, knowing what I knew, I felt sympathy. He had no idea. 33 years of marriage, raising a son he believed was his, and I was about to destroy it all. If Sonia forced my hand. Time for games. Sonia's voice rang out. She'd acquired the DJ's microphone. Everyone, gather around. People moved toward the center. I found myself positioned near the front, the sash making me impossible to miss, Dylan on one side and Ruby on the other. Sonia led us through baby shower bingo, then a blindfolded baby food tasting game. Everyone laughed. It felt almost normal. I started to think maybe Ella had been wrong. Then Sonia tapped the microphone again. Before we move on to gifts, she said, her voice taking on a different tone, there's something important we need to address. The garden went quiet. I knew. This was it. My hand went to my purse, feeling for the manila envelope. Family is the most important thing in the world, Sonia began. The Carter family has always valued honesty, integrity, and trust. We build our lives on solid foundations, on certainty about who we are and where we come from. Dylan tensed beside me. Even he was starting to sense something wrong. When my son told me he was going to be a father, I was overjoyed. What grandmother wouldn't be? Sonia paused, scanning the crowd. But as a mother, as a grandmother, I have responsibilities. I have a duty to protect this family, to ensure our trust isn't misplaced. Ruby grabbed my hand, squeezing hard. And so, Sonia reached into her handbag. I've brought something that needs to be addressed before we go any further. She pulled out the DNA test kit, blue and white packaging, and held it up like evidence. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Dylan's face went pale. Mom, what are you? Let me finish, Dylan. Sharp now, sugar coating gone. I've done research on this pregnancy timeline. The dates don't add up. You were in Chicago during the conception window. That's not, the window is approximate, I started, but Sonia talked over me. I know what I know. I've read enough about women who trap men with pregnancies, who see a good family and lie their way into it. She looked directly at me. I'm not going to let that happen to my son. Complete silence. 52 people holding their breath. So here's what's happening. Gianna is going to take this test right now, today, in front of all of us. We'll get the results and prove once and for all that this baby is actually Dylan's. This is insane, Dylan said, but his voice was weak. He looked at me, then at his mother, trapped between us like always. I can and I will. Sonia stepped toward me. Unless Gianna has something to hide. She was right in front of me now. The DNA kit extended like a weapon. Take the test, Gianna. Right now. Prove this baby is Dylan's, or admit you've been lying. I stood there, feeling 52 pairs of eyes on me. Some sympathetic, Ruby, Ella, Belle who'd stood up with clenched fists. Others curious, already convinced I must be guilty. Amy was smiling. Actually smiling. Charles looked horrified but said nothing. Did nothing. Just like Dylan, frozen while his wife publicly destroyed his daughter-in-law. My hand went to my purse. I'd hoped I wouldn't have to use it. Even carrying it here, I'd told myself maybe Sonia would back down. But she'd just taken that choice away. Time to show her what happens when you demand truth without being prepared for all the truths that come out. I pulled the envelope from my purse slowly. The garden was so quiet I could hear paper rustling against leather. You want to talk about DNA tests, Sonia? My voice was calmer than I felt. Let's talk about DNA tests. I walked toward her, closing the distance. My pregnant belly led the way. That's a DNA test, too, I said, holding up the envelope. But it's not for my baby. Confusion flickered across her face. What are you talking about? Open it. Right here. Right now. In front of everyone. Since you believe family business should be handled publicly, let's handle all of it. Sonia took the envelope, hands shaking. The crowd leaned in, sensing the shift. She opened it, pulled out the documents. I watched her face as she read the Meridian Biotech letterhead, the certification stamps, the technical analysis. Then I watched all color drain from her face as she reached the conclusion. Her hands went limp. The envelope fell. Charles caught it before it hit the ground, his face draining of color as he began to read over her shoulder. That's a DNA test proving Dylan, your son, my husband, the father of this baby, shares no paternal genetic markers with Charles Carter, I said clearly. According to certified laboratory analysis, Dylan is not Charles's biological son. The probability is 0%. The collective gasp from 52 guests was audible. Someone's champagne glass slipped and shattered on stone. Sonia's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. So before you stand here and accuse me of trapping your son, I continued, maybe you should explain to everyone here, including Charles, who Dylan's real father is. The silence stretched. Then Sonia started screaming. Not words. Just screaming. Raw sounds of rage and panic and humiliation. You bitch. Sonia lunged at me. I stepped back instinctively, hands protecting my belly. Dylan moved between us finally, catching his mother by the shoulders. Mom, stop. Stop it. She's lying. Sonia shrieked, perfect composure shattered. She fabricated those results. She works at that lab, she could have made up anything. The results are certified by 2 senior scientists, I said, voice still calm despite shaking hands. The chain of custody is documented. The samples were processed through standard quality assurance protocols. Every step is verified and legally defensible. Charles had gone completely white. He stood frozen, the envelope in his hands. Sonia, barely a whisper. Sonia, is this true? Sonia whirled on him, mascara running. Of course it's not true. She's a liar. She's trying to destroy our family because she knows I was right about her. Mrs. Carter, said a voice from the crowd. A man I didn't recognize stepped forward. I'm Dr. Cole Miller, retired genetics professor. I know Dr. Souza's work. Her research is impeccable. If she's presenting certified lab results from Meridian Biotech, they're legitimate. Sonia's face went from red to purple. You're all conspiring against me. Mom, Dylan's voice cracked. He was still holding her shoulders, but now he looked like he needed support. He looked at me, then at the documents. Gianna, is this real? Is this actually real? I'm sorry, I said, and I meant it. I found out 3 weeks ago when your sample came through the lab. I wasn't going to tell anyone. But then your mother decided to make paternity a public issue, and You weaponized it, Amy stood up, voice sharp. You used it to hurt our family. Your mother weaponized it, Ruby shot back, stepping beside me. She's the one who brought DNA tests to a baby shower. She tried to humiliate Gianna in front of 50 people. All Gianna did was defend herself with the truth. The truth? Charles's voice was louder now, stronger. Years of quiet acceptance breaking apart. He looked at Sonia with something cold. Betrayal. Sonia, I'm going to ask you one more time. Is this true? Is Dylan not my son? The garden held its breath. Sonia looked around wildly, at 52 witnesses, at her husband waiting, at her son whose identity was crumbling, at me standing there with the evidence. She could have denied it. Could have doubled down. Instead, she started crying. Real tears this time. Broken, ugly crying. It was 34 years ago, she sobbed. You were never home, Charles. Always working, building your business, and I was alone and lonely, Anne. Oh my God, Dylan's voice was hollow. Oh my God, it's true. He let go of his mother like she'd burned him, stepping backward until he bumped into a chair. He sat down hard, face blank with shock. Who? Charles asked. Hands clenched into fists. Who is his father? Sonia shook her head, still crying. It doesn't matter. It was one time, one mistake. He doesn't even know. Dylan is yours in every way that matters, Charles. You raised him, you loved him. That's not how biology works. Charles's shout startled everyone. Quiet, gentle Charles, who never raised his voice, was suddenly volcanic. 34 years, Sonia. 34 years you let me believe Dylan was mine. 34 years of lies. He is yours. Sonia reached for him, but Charles stepped back. DNA doesn't make someone a father. Love makes someone a father. Don't, Charles's voice broke. Don't you dare use my love for my son to justify what you did. He looked at Dylan, still sitting in shock. Dylan, Don't, Dylan said quietly. Just, don't. Guests were moving now, uncomfortable whispers spreading. Some were leaving, slipping toward the parking lot. Others pulled out phones, already texting. Amy sat down hard, earlier smugness gone. She looked small and lost. My mother Belle appeared at my side, arm around my shoulders. Come on, sweetheart. Let's get you out of here. I can't just leave. None of that matters right now, Belle said firmly. You're 30 weeks pregnant, you've been through incredible stress, and you need somewhere quiet and calm. Ruby was gathering my things, purse, the mommy-to-be sash from the ground. I'll handle the logistics. You focus on yourself and the baby. Ella pushed through the crowd. Gianna, I'm so sorry. I tried to warn you, but I didn't know it would be like this. It's not your fault, I said. You did warn me. Thank you. I looked back at the scene. Charles standing alone with the documents, looking like his world had collapsed. Dylan sitting motionless, staring at nothing. Sonia collapsed in a chair, surrounded by friends making awkward comfort attempts. Amy crying now too. And the guests, watching it all like entertainment. Mrs. Souza. A catering staff member approached, looking uncomfortable. I'm sorry, but there's the matter of the bill. Mrs. Carter said you'd be handling payment? Of course. Sonia had planned everything and left me with the bill. Belle pulled out her credit card. How much? $4,372. Belle handed over the card without hesitation. Charge it. Mom, you don't have to. Yes, I do. I've been saving for emergencies. This qualifies. Belle's voice was firm. We're paying, we're leaving, and we're holding our heads high. While Belle dealt with payment, Charles approached me, envelope still in his hands. Gianna, he said quietly. I don't blame you for this. You defended yourself against an unjust accusation. What Sonia did, trying to humiliate you publicly, that was wrong. And what she did to me, to Dylan. His voice broke. That's not your fault. I'm sorry you found out this way. If it hadn't been public, I probably never would have found out at all. He looked back at Sonia. 34 years. I thought I had a good marriage. And now. He trailed off. Dylan is still your son, I said gently. Maybe not biologically, but you raised him. That has value, Charles. That matters. Does it? Charles looked at me with devastated eyes. Because right now, I don't know what anything means anymore. He walked away, still carrying the documents that had destroyed his world. My mother drove me home in silence. Ruby followed with a handful of opened gifts. I sat in the passenger seat, hand on my belly where Emma was moving restlessly, probably responding to my stress hormones. My phone started buzzing the moment we pulled away from the venue. Text after text. Dylan, we need to talk. Where did you go? Dylan, I can't believe you knew for 3 weeks and didn't tell me. Dylan, my entire life is a lie and you dropped that bomb in front of 50 people. Amy, you destroyed our family. I hope you're happy. Ella, are you okay? Call me if you need anything. Unknown numbers split between condemnation and support. I turned off notifications and set the phone face down. Belle glanced over. You going to be okay? I don't know, I said honestly. I just destroyed my husband's family in front of 52 witnesses. His father's marriage is probably over. Dylan doesn't know who he is anymore. And I'm 30 weeks pregnant with a daughter who's going to grow up in this mess. You didn't destroy anything, Belle said firmly. Sonia's lies destroyed her family 34 years ago. What you did was defend yourself. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for that. We pulled into my driveway. Come inside, I said. I don't want to be alone. Belle stayed through the afternoon. Made tea, insisted I eat, helped me change out of the cream dress. Ruby arrived with the gifts and stayed too, the three of us trying to process what happened. My phone buzzed non-stop. 73 messages by evening. More from Dylan, progressing from shock to angry to begging me to call. One from Charles, thank you for the truth, even though it destroyed everything. I'm filing for divorce. Dylan needs time. Please give him space. One from Sonia, 4 words, you will regret this. One from an unknown number with a professional signature, this is Cole Simpson from the Bay Area Chronicle. I'd like to interview you about what happened. Please call at your earliest convenience. The press already knows, I breathed. Of course, Ruby said. 52 witnesses with smartphones. This hit social media before you left. She was right. A quick search brought up posts on community pages, shocking baby shower revelation. Already hundreds of comments, strangers weighing in on my character. My private crisis had become public entertainment. Don't read that, Belle said, taking my phone. Nothing good comes from reading what strangers think. Around 6 p.m., Dylan's car pulled into the driveway. He sat there for a long moment before getting out, moving slowly. Belle and Ruby exchanged glances. Want us to stay? Belle asked. No. I need to talk to him alone. But don't go far. They moved to the kitchen. Dylan let himself in with his key. He looked terrible, eyes red, shirt rumpled, face haggard. He'd aged 10 years in 6 hours. You knew, he said finally. For 3 weeks, you knew, and you didn't tell me. I didn't know what to do with the information. I was trying to figure out how to handle it. So you decided to destroy everything publicly instead? Dylan's voice rose. In front of my entire family? 50 people? You couldn't have found a better way? Your mother brought DNA tests to my baby shower. My voice rose to match. She accused me of trapping you with another man's baby in front of everyone. She tried to force me to prove my baby's paternity while I'm 30 weeks pregnant. What was I supposed to do? Just take it? You could have told me privately 3 weeks ago. We could have handled this as a family, quietly. Like you've handled everything else with your family? I shot back. With quiet conversations that go nowhere? How many times have I asked you to stand up to your mother? And what have you done? Apologize to me in private while letting her do whatever she wants. This is different. This is exactly the same. The only difference is the stakes are higher. Your mother has been controlling and manipulative our entire relationship, and you've enabled it. Today, when she tried to humiliate me, I finally defended myself the only way she left me. Dylan sank onto the couch, head in his hands. I don't even know who I am anymore. My whole life, I thought I was Charles Carter's son. And now it's all a lie. I sat beside him, leaving space between us. You're still you, Dylan. Charles raised you, shaped you, loved you. That doesn't change because you don't share his DNA. Doesn't it? Dylan looked at me with devastated eyes. Because right now, everything feels like a lie. My family, my identity, my marriage. Our marriage isn't a lie. Isn't it? You kept this from me for 3 weeks. You carried it to a baby shower in your purse like a weapon. I carried it as protection. Ella warned me your mother was planning something. I didn't want to use it. But your mother forced my hand. You could have left. Walked out, refused to engage. And let everyone believe her accusations? Let her plant doubt about our baby in 50 people's minds? I shook my head. No. I defended myself with the truth. Your mother wanted to make paternity public. She just didn't expect all the secrets to come out. Dylan stood abruptly. I can't do this right now. I can't be here. Where are you going? I don't know. A hotel. I need space to think. My dad just filed for divorce. My mom is. I don't know what she is. My sister won't stop crying. And my wife just destroyed my entire understanding of my family. Your mother destroyed your family, I said quietly. Not me. Dylan looked at me for a long moment. Right now, I can't tell the difference. He left. I sat on the couch, listening to his car pull away, and finally let myself cry. Dylan didn't come home that night. Or the next. Or the one after that. He texted once, late on day 2, staying at a hotel. Need more time. Are you okay? Is the baby okay? I texted back, we're fine. Take the time you need. But we weren't fine. I was 30 weeks pregnant, sleeping alone, waking every few hours with anxiety and Emma's increasingly strong kicks. Belle wanted me to stay with her. I refused. This was my house, my space, and I wasn't being driven out. Ruby came by daily, bringing food I barely ate, keeping me company. She'd taken charge of dealing with the aftermath, collecting remaining gifts, fielding reporter calls, managing the social media storm. There are think pieces, she told me on day 3, scrolling her phone. When self-defense becomes destruction, the ethics of public family revelations. DNA testing and the modern family. Mother-in-law drama goes nuclear at Bay Area baby shower. Please stop reading those. Half say you're a hero. Half say you're cruel and vindictive. Ruby set down her phone. For what it's worth, I think you did what you had to. Dylan doesn't think so. Dylan's in shock. Give him time. But time felt like a luxury I didn't have. I was 30 weeks pregnant with a baby arriving in 8 to 10 weeks, and I had no idea if my husband would be there. On day 4, I got a call from an unknown number. Gianna? This is Jameson Porter. I'm Charles Carter's attorney. My heart sank. I'm not discussing anything without my own lawyer. I'm not calling on behalf of Charles. I'm calling as a friend. Charles wanted me to check on you, make sure you're doing okay. He's worried about you and the baby. That surprised me. He's worried about me? His wife his entire marriage. His wife lied to him for 34 years, Jameson finished. Charles is devastated, angry, filing for divorce. But he's aware you're 30 weeks pregnant and his son has abandoned you in a hotel somewhere. Charles doesn't blame you, and if you need anything, legal advice, financial support, someone to talk to, you should call him. I felt tears welling. Thank you. Tell him I'm sorry. He knows. He also wanted me to give you information. Jameson's tone became professional. Divorce proceedings have begun. Sonia will likely protect assets, claim the affair was a mistake. Charles is being advised to go scorched earth, but he's hesitant because of Dylan and Amy. Why are you telling me this? Because whatever happens in that marriage affects yours. Dylan is caught between his parents. Sonia is calling him constantly, trying to get him on her side, painting you as the villain. Dylan is vulnerable, confused about his identity, angry at everyone. You need to be prepared for him to potentially side with Sonia. He wouldn't. I hope you're right. But I've seen family crises like this. People don't always make rational choices when their world is falling apart. After the call, I sat with that warning. The possibility that Dylan might choose his mother over me. On day 5, Dylan finally came home. Late afternoon. I was in the nursery organizing baby clothes when I heard his key in the lock. Emma immediately started kicking. Dylan appeared in the doorway. He looked worse, unshaven, exhausted, same clothes from days ago. But his eyes were clearer. We need to talk, he said. We went to the living room. Dylan sat across from me, maintaining distance. That felt significant. I've been staying with my dad, he said. At his hotel. Not my mom, she's at the Hillsborough house, but Dad can't be there. He's not doing well, Gianna. He trusted her completely, and she lied their entire marriage. I know. His lawyer called me. Dylan's eyebrows rose. He did. To check on me. To tell me Charles doesn't blame me. I paused. Do you blame me, Dylan? He was quiet for a long moment. I've been trying to figure that out. I've talked to my dad, to a therapist, to Amy. How is Amy? Devastated. Angry at everyone. She's been the golden child her whole life, and now her family is imploding. Dylan ran his hands through his hair. She blames you. Says you could have handled this differently. There weren't other ways. Not once your mother brought that DNA test. You could have told me 3 weeks ago. Dylan's voice was measured, but I heard the hurt. We could have figured out together how to handle it. And you've been making unilateral decisions to avoid conflict with your mother our entire relationship, I countered. Every time I asked you to set boundaries, you chose keeping peace over protecting me. So yes, when I finally had leverage, I used it. Without consulting you. Because consulting you would have meant you'd find a way to smooth it over, to protect your mother's feelings, to sacrifice my dignity for family harmony. Dylan flinched. That's not fair. Isn't it? Be honest. If I'd told you 3 weeks ago, what would you have done? He opened his mouth, closed it. I would have talked to my parents privately. Confronted my mother. And she would have denied it. Would have cried, made you feel guilty, turned it around. And you would have backed down because you always back down. You don't know that. Yes, I do. I've watched it happen 100 times in 3 years. Your mother pushes, you apologize privately but do nothing publicly. It's a pattern. The only difference this time is I finally broke it. Dylan stood, started pacing. My therapist says I have conflict avoidance issues. That I was trained from childhood to keep peace because my mother's anger was unpredictable. That I learned to placate rather than confront. I could have told you that without a therapist. She also said what you did was both self-defense and aggression. That you were justified but that the public nature was designed to humiliate my mother the way she tried to humiliate you. Yes, I said simply. It was. Your mother has been humiliating me for 3 years, and you let her. So when she tried one more time, in front of 52 witnesses, I made sure she understood what humiliation feels like. And my dad got caught in the crossfire. And me. And Amy. Your mother's lie caught everyone in the crossfire. I just brought it to light. You can be angry at me for the method, but don't pretend I created this. Sonia did, 34 years ago. Dylan sank back into the chair. I know. Logically, I know. But emotionally, it's easier to blame you than my mother. Because I'm here and supposed to be on your side, and admitting your mother is the villain means accepting she's lied to you your entire life. Yes. We sat in silence. Emma kicked hard, and I winced. Is she okay? Dylan asked, eyes going to my belly. She's fine. Active. Stressed because I'm stressed. I'm sorry I left you alone for 5 days while you're 30 weeks pregnant. I just couldn't process everything while being here. I understand. But Dylan, we have a bigger problem. In 8 to 10 weeks, we're going to have a baby. And I need to know, are you going to be here for her? For us? Or are you going to keep choosing your mother's feelings over your family? Dylan didn't answer right away. He sat there, looking at me, at my belly, at the nursery door down the hall. I don't know, he said finally. I want to say yes. But I've been choosing wrong for 3 years, and I don't trust myself to suddenly know how to choose right. At least he was being honest. My therapist wants to see me 3 times a week. She says I have work to do on boundaries, on recognizing manipulation, on learning to tolerate conflict. She suggested couples counseling. Okay, I said. I'm willing to try. But Gianna, I can't promise I'll be perfect. I can't promise I won't slip back. This is going to be hard work, and it's going to take time. We have 8 to 10 weeks, I said. Less if Emma comes early. So you need to figure out how to do the hard work fast, because I'm not raising our daughter in a household where her father prioritizes his mother's feelings over his family's well-being. The next few weeks were strange, fragile. Like learning to be married all over again but with the pressure of an impending baby and a scandal that wouldn't die. Dylan moved back home that night. He started therapy 3 times a week, individual sessions Monday, Wednesday, Friday mornings before school, couples counseling with me Thursday evenings. Our therapist, Dr. Amber, was a no-nonsense woman in her 50s who specialized in family enmeshment. Your mother calls you how many times a day? She asked in our second session. 8, maybe 10. Sometimes more. And you answer every time? Dylan looked uncomfortable. She's going through a divorce. She's devastated. I can't ignore her. You can, Dr. Amber said calmly. You can set a boundary, Mom, I love you, but I can't be your emotional support right now. I'm dealing with my own crisis. You need a therapist or lean on friends. Then limit contact to once a day, or 3 times a week, or whatever feels manageable. She'll say I'm abandoning her. And you can say, I'm not abandoning you. I'm protecting my mental health and my marriage. Dr. Amber looked at him directly. Dylan, your mother is an adult who made choices that led to consequences. You are not responsible for managing her emotions. It took 3 more sessions before Dylan implemented that boundary. I was there when he made the call, sitting beside him on the couch. Mom, I love you, but I need space, Dylan said, hands shaking. I'll call you twice a week, Tuesday and Friday. But I can't handle daily conversations right now. Sonia cried. Accused him of choosing, that woman, over his mother. Said he was breaking her heart when she was at her lowest. Dylan stayed firm. I love you. But I need space. I'll call Tuesday and Friday. He hung up, hands trembling so hard he had to set the phone down. How do you feel? I asked. Terrible. Like I kicked a puppy. He looked at me with anguished eyes. This is what doing the right thing feels like. Sometimes. It gets easier. Does it? I don't know. But at least you're trying. The boundary held for 4 days before Sonia violated it. She showed up Saturday morning, ringing the doorbell repeatedly until Dylan answered. I watched from the window as they talked on the porch. Sonia crying, gesturing dramatically, trying to hug him. Dylan stepping back, maintaining distance, shaking his head. He came back inside after 10 minutes. I told her she can't show up unannounced. That if she needs to talk, she can call during scheduled times. She said I was being cruel. How did you respond? I said I was being boundaried, and there's a difference. Dylan looked exhausted but also proud. Surprised at himself. Then I came inside and locked the door. It was progress. Small, hard-won progress. Charles filed for divorce officially in week 3. According to Jameson, who kept me updated, Sonia was fighting dirty, hiding assets, transferring money to Amy's account, claiming jewelry as gifts. She's not going to come out of this well, Jameson told me over coffee. He'd become an unexpected ally, checking in weekly. How is Dylan doing? About as well as you'd expect. Charles asks about you every time we talk. About the baby. He wants to be part of Emma's life, even though Dylan isn't biologically his grandson. Dylan is still his son. DNA doesn't change 33 years. Try telling that to Dylan. Dylan's identity crisis was ongoing. Some days he'd call Charles, my dad, like nothing changed. Other days, Charles, with strange formality. He'd started researching genetic ancestry obsessively, trying to figure out who his biological father might be. It could be anyone, he said one night, laptop open with 17 tabs about Western European genetic patterns. Some guy my mother met at a bar. Someone who doesn't even know I exist. Does it matter? Yes. No. I don't know. He closed the laptop in frustration. I feel like half my genetic code is a question mark. Your mother knows the answer. My mother isn't speaking to me. She says I chose you over her, that I'm a traitor. That was only partially true. Sonia had tried calling dozens of times after the twice-weekly boundary. When Dylan didn't answer, she'd started texting. Long, rambling messages about how hurt she was, how ungrateful he was, how I'd poisoned him. Dr. Amber suggested blocking her except during scheduled times. Dylan finally did it last week, and Sonia escalated to showing up at his school. The principal had to ask her to leave when she caused a scene in the office, demanding to see her son, crying that he was being kept from her by his manipulative wife. Dylan had been mortified. Colleagues witnessed it. Students heard. She's making this impossible, he'd said that night. I set boundaries, and she treats them like suggestions. Hold the line. Every time she violates a boundary, she proves why it was necessary. Amy had chosen Sonia's side completely. Stopped speaking to Dylan, blocked him on social media. When he tried visiting her house, she refused to answer the door. My sister thinks I betrayed Mom, Dylan told me. She says I should be supporting her through the divorce, not siding with the woman who exposed her affair. You're not siding with anyone. You're surviving the fallout of your mother's choices. Amy doesn't see it that way. But there were allies. Ella had become a regular presence, stopping by with coffee and pastries, texting encouragement. Sonia did something similar to my mom, Ella told me one afternoon while folding baby clothes in the nursery. Convinced my dad that my mom was having an affair, planted evidence, caused a huge blow-up at a family reunion. Turned out Sonia fabricated the whole thing because my mom refused to loan her money. The family swept it under the rug, said Sonia was going through a hard time, made my mom apologize. Your mom apologized? That's what this family does. They protect Sonia's feelings at everyone else's expense. You're the first person who's ever fought back and won. That's why half the family hates you and the other half secretly admires you. Charles started coming for dinner once a week. Awkward at first, sitting at our table making small talk while Dylan struggled to call him anything. But gradually, it got easier. Charles would ask about my work, the pregnancy, Emma's development. He'd share stories about Dylan as a child, teaching him to ride a bike, science fair projects. You're still my son, Charles said one evening after dinner, looking directly at Dylan. I raised you. I loved you. I'm proud of the man you became. None of that changes because of biology. Dylan's eyes filled with tears. I don't know how to reconcile that with the fact that you're not actually my father. I am your father, Charles said firmly. In every way that matters. It was the first time I saw Dylan really cry since the shower. He sobbed in Charles's arms like a child, and Charles held him, and I turned away to give them privacy. Over the following weeks, the therapy started working. Slowly, incrementally, things shifted. Dylan's boundaries with Sonia held more consistently. When she violated them, showing up unannounced, calling outside scheduled times, sending manipulative texts, he enforced consequences. Blocked her for a week. Reduced calls from twice weekly to once. Refused to engage with guilt trips. It feels terrible every time, he admitted after ending a call where Sonia had cried about being abandoned. But Dr. Amber says that's normal. That I'm unlearning patterns that were established in childhood. In couples counseling, we worked on communication. On Dylan learning to speak up when something bothered him instead of letting resentment build. On me learning to trust that he was actually changing instead of waiting for him to revert. You're both operating from trauma, Dr. Amber told us in week 6. Gianna, you learned early that depending on others meant losing autonomy. Dylan, you learned that conflict meant emotional chaos. Those patterns served you once. Now they're working against you. We practiced difficult conversations. Dylan telling me when he felt overwhelmed instead of shutting down. Me expressing needs instead of assuming he'd fail to meet them. It wasn't smooth. There were setbacks. Days where Dylan answered one of Sonia's boundary-violating calls and got sucked into a 2-hour guilt trip. Days where I snapped at him for something minor because the stress of late pregnancy and family chaos was wearing me down. But there were victories too. The day Dylan told Sonia clearly, firmly, that he wouldn't discuss me or our marriage with her anymore. My relationship with Gianna is between us. If you can't respect that boundary, we can't talk at all. Sonia had hung up on him. Didn't call back for 3 days, testing to see if he'd break. He didn't. The day Amy showed up at our door, 8 weeks after the shower, crying and apologetic. I'm so sorry, she said, standing on our porch looking small and lost. Mom's been in my ear for weeks, telling me you destroyed the family, that Dylan chose you over us. But I watched her try to manipulate Mike yesterday, use the same tactics she's been using on all of us, and I finally saw it. Really saw it. Dylan had hugged his sister while she sobbed. I'm sorry too. For everything you're going through. Amy came inside. We talked for 2 hours, about Sonia's patterns, about growing up in a house where peace meant compliance, about how the golden child role had been a cage as much as a privilege. I don't know if I can forgive you yet, Amy told me honestly. Part of me still wishes you'd handled it differently. But I understand why you did it. And I'm trying to work through my own stuff with a therapist. It wasn't full reconciliation, but it was a start. Charles's divorce moved forward. Sonia fought every step, claimed the affair was ancient history that shouldn't affect asset division, tried to paint Charles as vindictive, argued that her decades as a homemaker entitled her to more. But the evidence was clear. The paternity fraud, the hidden assets, the manipulation. The court wasn't sympathetic. Final hearing is next month, Jameson told me in week 7. Charles will keep the Hillsborough house, most of the investment portfolio. Sonia gets the lake house and alimony, but much less than she wanted. How's he doing? Building a life. He started dating someone, a woman he met in a divorce support group. He seems lighter than I've seen him in years. I was 37 weeks pregnant now. Emma could come any day. The nursery was ready, hospital bag packed, birth plan written and rewritten a dozen times. Dylan and I had settled into a new normal. Not the easy intimacy we'd had before, that might never come back. But something more honest. More resilient. I'm scared, he admitted one night, hand on my belly feeling Emma kick. Scared I'll mess this up. Scared I'll revert to old patterns when things get hard. Scared I'm not strong enough to be the father and husband you both need. I'm scared too, I said. Scared you'll choose your mother over us when it really counts. Scared this is temporary and you'll backslide once the baby's here and stress is high. So what do we do? Keep working. Keep being honest. Keep choosing each other even when it's hard. Dylan kissed my forehead. I'm choosing you. I'm choosing Emma. I'm choosing us. Every day, I'm choosing us. I wanted to believe him. Most days, I did. Dr. Amber said that was enough for now. Trust isn't rebuilt overnight. It's rebuilt in small moments, consistent choices, kept promises. Dylan is doing the work. You're doing the work. That's what matters. Ella threw me a second baby shower, small, intimate, just 15 people who actually loved and supported us. Ruby, Belle, Ella, a few friends from work, Charles and his new girlfriend, Amy and Mike, Dylan's supportive cousins. No drama. No DNA tests. No Sonia. Just celebration. To Emma, Charles said, raising a glass of sparkling cider. And to her mother, who taught this family that boundaries aren't cruelty, they're self-respect. To Gianna, Dylan added, looking at me with something that looked like awe and gratitude and love. The strongest person I know. I cried. Pregnancy hormones, relief, exhaustion, hope, all of it spilling over. 2 weeks later, at 39 weeks, my water broke at 3 a.m. Dylan drove me to the hospital, hand gripping mine, breathing through his own anxiety. You've got this, he said. We've got this. 12 hours later, Emma Rose Sousa Carter was born. 7 pounds, 4 ounces. Perfect. Dylan held her first, tears streaming down his face. Hi, sweetheart. I'm your dad. I'm going to do better by you than was done for me. Charles came to visit that evening. He held Emma with gentle reverence, this granddaughter who shared no DNA with him but whom he loved instantly. She has your eyes, Gianna, he said. And Dylan's nose. She's perfect. Belle was there. Ruby brought flowers. Ella brought a onesie that said "Badass Baby," that made everyone laugh. Amy came, tentative, bearing a handmade blanket. I'm working on being a good aunt, she said. I want Emma to know me as someone who learned to be better. Sonia wasn't there. Wasn't invited. Sent a card through the mail 3 days later, impersonal, stiff, signed only with her name. Dylan read it and threw it away. She doesn't get to be part of this, he said. Not until she does real work to change. Not until she can respect our boundaries and acknowledge what she did. And maybe not even then. It was the strongest I'd ever heard him. 6 months after Emma was born, I stood at my living room window, holding my daughter while she nursed, watching the sun rise over the Berkeley Hills. Dylan was in the kitchen making breakfast. Charles was coming over later for his weekly Sunday dinner with us. Amy had texted that morning asking if she could bring Emma a gift she'd found. The house was quiet, peaceful. My life looked nothing like it had a year ago. My marriage had been rebuilt from the ground up, more honest but less certain. My relationship with my in-laws was fractured, Charles closer than ever, Sonia completely cut off, Amy rebuilding tentatively. The scandal had eventually faded from public attention, replaced by newer, fresher drama. But within the Carter family and their social circles, I'd been permanently labeled. Some saw me as the hero who exposed toxic family secrets. Others saw me as the villain who destroyed a family. I'd learned to care less about how strangers categorized me. What mattered was this: Emma was healthy and loved. Dylan was doing the work, still in therapy, still enforcing boundaries, still choosing us even when it was hard. Belle was thriving, proud of the daughter who'd stood her ground. And I had built a life on my own terms, protected it fiercely, and survived the consequences. Coffee's ready, Dylan called from the kitchen. I carried Emma in, settled into the chair while Dylan set down mugs and plates of scrambled eggs. "Your dad texted," he said. "Wants to know if Emma needs anything. He's apparently become obsessed with baby shopping." I smiled. "She has everything. But he can bring whatever makes him happy." Dylan sat across from me, watching me feed Emma. "Do you ever regret it? The way it happened?" I thought about that. About the baby shower, the public confrontation, the envelope in my purse, the moment I'd decided to fight back. "No," I said finally. "I regret that it had to happen. I regret that your mother created a situation where defending myself meant destroying your family's illusions. But I don't regret defending myself. And I don't regret protecting Emma from growing up in a family where manipulation and control were treated as normal." Dylan nodded slowly. "My therapist asked me the same thing. If I regret how it happened. And I realized, I don't regret the truth coming out. I regret that it was a secret for 34 years. I regret that my mother's lie affected so many people. But I don't regret knowing who I actually am, even if it's uncomfortable." "How's your search going?" I asked gently. Dylan had been working with a genetic genealogist, trying to identify his biological father. "I think we have a lead," he said. "A second cousin match that might point to a family in Oregon. I'm not sure I want to reach out yet, but it's something. Whatever you decide, I support you." Emma finished nursing, looked up at me with those huge dark eyes that were entirely her own. Not Dylan's, not mine, not Sonia's, or Charles's. Just Emma's. "She's going to grow up knowing the truth," Dylan said. "About all of it. Age appropriate, of course, but honest. No secrets, no lies, no pretending things are fine when they're not." Agreed. "And if my mother ever does the work to change, if she ever acknowledges what she did and respects our boundaries, maybe, we can have some kind of limited relationship. But that's a big maybe, and it's entirely dependent on her. And if she doesn't change? Then Emma grows up without a grandmother on my side. And that's sad, but it's better than growing up with someone who would manipulate and control her the way Sonia did to me." It was the right answer. The hard answer. The one that proved Dylan really had changed. My phone buzzed. A text from Ruby, article just published. "Did you see it?" I opened the link she'd sent. 1 year later, the baby shower DNA revelation that changed everything. The article interviewed several family members, Charles talking about rebuilding his life after divorce, Amy discussing her therapy and growth, even Ella sharing her perspective on family patterns and toxic dynamics. Sonia had declined to be interviewed. The article concluded, "Whatever judgment one might pass on the methods, the outcome has sparked important conversations about family boundaries, the cost of keeping secrets, and the courage it takes to stand up to manipulation, even when the manipulator is someone you're supposed to love unconditionally." "They called you courageous," Dylan said, reading over my shoulder. "They also called me vindictive in the paragraph before that." "You're both," Dylan said with a small smile. "Courageous and vindictive. Protective and aggressive. You contain multitudes." Emma made a small noise, and I shifted her to my shoulder for burping. This was my life now. Complicated, messy, built on truth instead of comfortable lies. I'd lost the easy relationship I'd hoped to have with my in-laws, lost the fantasy that my marriage could avoid the hard work of standing up to family dysfunction. But I'd gained something more valuable, self-respect. A marriage built on honesty instead of avoidance. A daughter who would grow up seeing her mother defend herself, set boundaries, refuse to be diminished. The penthouse in that other woman's story had been her symbol of independence. For me, it was this moment, standing in my own house that I'd bought with my own money, holding my daughter, married to a man who was finally learning to choose us, surrounded by people who respected rather than violated boundaries. Protection had cost me. It cost me the fantasy of an easy family, cost me relationships with people who valued compliance over authenticity, cost me the comfort of avoiding conflict. But what I'd gained was freedom. Freedom to live honestly. Freedom to demand respect. Freedom to teach my daughter that she never had to shrink herself to make others comfortable. What are you thinking about? Dylan asked. That I'd do it all again, I said. Every single part of it. Because the alternative was teaching Emma that keeping peace matters more than protecting yourself. And I won't raise a daughter who believes that. Dylan stood, came around the table, wrapped his arms around both of us. I love you. Both of you. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving that choosing you wasn't just talk. I leaned into him, holding our daughter between us. Outside, the sun had fully risen. The city was waking up, moving forward, oblivious to the small family in the Berkeley Hills who'd fought their way to this hard-won peace. My grandmother's voice echoed in my memory, build something that's yours. Never apologize for succeeding when others chose to fail. I'd built this. This life, this family, this future. And I'd protected it when protection required courage more than compliance. That was worth everything it cost. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.